Hey, it's me, Egbert. E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
John, I have a friend of mine who lives in Oklahoma City. Matter of fact, I have several people that I know that live in Oklahoma City. Several of them used to live here. And part of that was involved in the fact that they work for the government, specifically the FAA. I don't know if you know this. FAA has a huge presence in Oklahoma City. It's like one of their regional centers. They do a lot of training out there. I didn't know that. But this was sent to me last night, which I thought was sort of interesting. Do you know that Oklahoma City is going to have 2 of the 2028 Olympic venues in Oklahoma City? Now, keep in mind, the 2028 Olympics are in Los Angeles. But 2...
No way.
Yeah,
what are the events?
Here, let me open this up. One of them is softball, and the other one, here's the article. This is from the Channel 4 in Los Angeles. Why 2 2028 Los Angeles Olympics events are moving to Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City will provide settings for part of the Hollywood story when the 2028 Summer Olympics come to Los Angeles. Softball and canoe slalom Olympians will be 1,300 miles from Southern California when the competition is hosted by Los Angeles for a third time in 2028. The reason for this is Los Angeles is, you can imagine, here's what's sort of crazy. LA, which is in California, when they got the 2028 Olympic nod, one of their things was they said they were going to be financially responsible and they were not going to build any new venues for the Olympics. They're going to use existing venues. They're going to use the LA Coliseum like they have, I think, in 2 previous Olympics as well too. But they did not have a place for the softball tournament, and they did not have a place for this canoe slalom, whatever you want to call it. So they're outsourcing that to Oklahoma City, which I sort of thought is sort of interesting, because I'm thinking to myself when I heard this, I go, canoeing in Oklahoma City? Oklahoma City.
Yeah, they're known for it.
It's kind of flat there. You know what I mean? If you ever driven across Oklahoma, I mean, it's pretty damn flat, especially Tulsa and Oklahoma City. About the same. There's not a lot of hills around there, but apparently that's what they're doing. I thought that was interesting.
I heard why you're terrible at the slalom, Brad, and why you never made the Olympics.
Why is that?
I was talking to your old girlfriend. She said you could never find the canoe drive.
Here we go with John again. Okay. This was sent to me by a listener, and I think they knew it would probably get me a little bit started here. This is an article out of the St. Louis American, and it's in their education section. And
boy, that's irony, isn't it? Go ahead.
I'll read you the headline. It says, "We need black teachers in more ways than you think." And the article talks about, for grade school teachers, keeping up with student slang is a race as old as the teaching profession itself, and one they can never win. Changing as quickly as the weather, the hot slang word or phrase of the moment, the one that's so lit everyone is the calf is using it, is usually hella dead by time most adults know catch up. Okay, this is the St. Louis American. When it shows up in the classrooms, in students' oral answers and written exams, slang can leave teachers scratching their heads. That's led some educators to take extreme measures. One teacher went viral for an outright ban on slang, while other pranks his own students with fake slang. But some black K-12 educators have taken a different view. They've embraced slang as a valuable teaching tool for black students, one that celebrates their identities, culture, lived experience, and linguistic ingenuity. Chris Emdin, E-M-D-I-N, an associate professor at Teachers College, proposes a new approach to teaching he calls ratchetdemic, R-A-T-C-H-E-T-D-E-M-I-C, like ratchet with demic, like academic on the back end.
Yeah.
It centers the language and culture of black students lived with experience in a way that may not align with traditional academia. Quote, "We don't need their permission to create language, especially as people who created hip-hop. This can be a valuable teaching tool for our kids about linguistic ingenuity," he says. Now, here's what's interesting. He goes on to essentially say that black students should be taught by black teachers, that there are all these different studies that have come out that prove that if you have a black teacher teaching black students, that they have higher achievement. And here we go right here. One way to help schools achieve that level of comfort for black students is diversity workforce, a long-standing problem in U.S. public schools. Study after study shows achievement among students of color rise if they are taught by a teacher who looks like them, making it potentially easier to relate to or understand slang. Yet the percentage of black teachers working in public schools is around 7% nationwide. So isn't this article essentially saying, and this is the thing that I scratch my head on, and once again, I lived through this. I'm old enough to remember, segregated schools. I'm old enough to remember all the marches that Joe Biden claims he was a part of, which he wasn't, but that's a whole other story. There was segregation where you had black schools and you had white schools. And then you had the crazy thing was the Supreme Court ruling that said separate but equal. But then essentially, no, that was ruled illegal. So now you have integration. Okay, what they're essentially saying is they're going back to segregation again. Hey, you black students, you learn better with a black teacher, so we're going to put you in. If you're a white student, you get the white teacher. If you're a black student, you get the black teacher. Isn't that what they're saying?
I don't think so. I think they're saying that black students would probably be more likely to listen and pay attention if they had a black teacher. Now, Brad, I think it's a little bit of a logical leap to say that they're saying that white students should have white teachers and black students should have black teachers. I think it's probably fair to say that if you're teaching a black classroom and you're a black woman or a black man, you might command more attention and respect in that regard. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Well,
and by the way, I'm sure this piece in the American, did it come from some other place? Like they don't have, like the American doesn't have anybody that can write local news stories, do they?
It says, by Azia, Aziah, last name Sid, Siid, and it says word in black. So I guess is that
okay? I'm sure that's a nationally syndicated thing.
Author
yeah,
archives.
That sounds fine to me, Brad. Now, Brad, are you familiar with? I don't mean to get us off the main topic, but you're familiar with the word ratchet?
I am.
Okay, good. I don't mean to be condescending.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if you would know what ratchet meant. Okay, that's good.
Let me take this one step further. I sent this to a couple of my educator friends who have not retired yet, if you can imagine that. And one of them responded, which was sort of interesting, and they were like, and what's interesting, they teach in almost an all-black school. And
Hazelwood is almost all black right now, right?
Right. How did you know it was Hazelwood? Okay.
Well,
and their response was they thought they disagreed with this. But my response was, now here's what's interesting. I said to this person, okay, if we're going to talk about that black students, learn better with a black teacher, wouldn't male students learn better with a male teacher? And I asked this particular person, and I'm not going to divulge what school she teaches in, how many male teachers there were in her grade school. And she is in a grade school that has 500 students. Take a guess at how many male teachers there are in this particular grade school.
I would say 3.
One. One
yeah.
dude.
And doesn't that lead to, I don't mean to cut your story out, Brad, but doesn't that lead to, you and I have talked a lot about masculinity. Doesn't this lead to a fact that other than having a principal and maybe a gym teacher and maybe one or two other teachers, maybe an art teacher or something like that, if you're a young man, you go into school, an elementary school, so from roughly 8 o'clock to let's say 3 o'clock, all day long, women are telling you to sit down, be quiet, get back in your chair, stop running, don't trip, stop throwing things, be quiet. So all day long, women are nagging you. Tell me that doesn't have an effect on your psyche.
Well, you mentioned, and you stated this incorrectly, and I'll correct you on this. In this particular school, all the administrators, the principal and the assistant principal, are all women as well, too. So
okay, and that's why I use the word maybe, Brad, but go ahead.
Okay, well, but see, that's sort of my point. So if you're saying, okay, black kids do better with a black teacher, which is what this professor is saying, then wouldn't it make more sense if you said, okay, let's take that to the next level, and let's say maybe male students would do better with male teachers and male authority figures. And what you say is, now I know we're going to get a lot of pushback on this, but you're exactly right. So, and not only that, it's to the point where they talk about, and you've heard this before, that, a lot in the black community, they want role models. They want someone that looks like them. Matter of fact, How many people have said that about Barack Obama and especially Michelle Obama? A lot of women say, she's my role model because I look like her. Okay, so Maybe that's why there's a bunch of dudes coming out of grade school that have no idea what their sexuality is. You know what I'm saying? Does that
yeah. And hey, and you and I have talked about this before. You've made that point, Brad, and I think there's something to that. But I just think it goes back to, I think we would see, by the way, if there was a mountain of data that showed that boys perform better with male teachers, I think we probably would have heard of that. That doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. But let's go back to the masculinity thing, Brad. Can you imagine, and God forbid, think of young men, whether they're white or whether they're black, who don't have a strong male figure in their life. What if they're only raised by their mom? What if their dad abandoned them, or their dad's not in the picture, or their dad's not present? Then all they have in their life are women telling them where to go and what to do, and sit down and be quiet and pay attention in class, little Johnny. Like, where are the men to be role models?
Well, but not only that, talk to anybody who teaches in the grade school level, and they will tell you that boys are naturally rambunctious. They've got all their energy, and nothing against the girls, but the girls are normally more well behaved and not as bouncing off the walls and stuff like that. And once again, they're told, stop that, don't do that, sit in your chair. And trust me, I was one of those kids. I got in trouble all the time.
Brown.
I got in trouble all the time in grade school, all the time. Matter of fact, I can tell you, this is going to be a weird thing. There is a historical moment, which I won't mention, but a historical moment that is anybody in my age bracket. If you say, where were you when you heard blah, 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 and everyone can tell you exactly where they were, as can I. And you know where I was? I was standing out in the hall because I got in trouble in my classroom. And I was standing out in the hall because I was being disciplined. That was the discipline, at least where I went to school at. If you were rambunctious in the classroom, that the teacher would send you out in the hall, and you'd stand out there for an hour by yourself. And I remember standing out in the hall and a teacher walking down the hall crying because she had just heard the news. And I didn't know what was going on. And then this historical moment came about, and to the point where I can know exactly where it was because I had just gotten thrown out of the classroom for being a rambunctious kid.
Yeah, and that's how you knew that Fonzie actually jumped the shark and that the show was going to be off the air.
Okay, one last thing. Here, I got to keep track of where we're at here because I'm not doing a real good job of when I do the show, the notes. Here, I have to make my notes. Okay, number 1 was Olympics. Okay, number 2 was American. Okay. Do you know the rivalry between the Navy and other military organizations?
Yeah, boy, it's a really serious thing. And every year the football game, Army versus Navy, is a huge to-do. And people that have nothing to do with the military seem to take sides. I don't know why.
Okay. A lot of people don't understand about the relationship between the Navy and the Marines. Do you know about this whole relationship? Do you know?
Yeah, other than the fact that the Marines are technically part of the Navy.
Right. And do you know why that is?
No, I don't.
This goes back to the old days of sailing ships and cannons on ships and things like that. And you had the Navy guys who essentially were the ones for, back in the day with the sails and the rudder and all that kind of stuff. And then what happened was you had the cannon battles, and then when the ships could get close enough, you had the one group of people jump off the ship onto the other try to take over the ship, okay? The Marines were on the ship to essentially repel the invaders from another ship because the Navy guys were not necessarily the tough guys. The Navy guys were the guys that were running the ship and stuff like that. The Marines were on the ship to essentially engage in battle once they were boarded. So that's how the Marines, and that's where their name came from, the Marines. You have the Navy and you have the Marines. The Marines were essentially the Army that was based upon the ships that were supposed to defend the ships while the sailors were busy still trying to sail the ships, okay? So that's gotten very murky through the years, and even to the point where you have Navy aviators, you have Marine Corps aviators. There's still a constant back and forth that the Navy guys are not a bunch of really trained warriors, and the Marines are the tough guys, okay? This is an article, and this is, I've seen this at 3 or 4 different places. Here's the headline, one of them. U.S. Navy warship commander relieved of duty following image of him shooting shooting with rifle scope mounted backwards. Okay, so here's the captain of the ship. He's the commander of the U.S. Navy destroyer USS John McCain, has been relieved of his duties months after the service branch faced ridicule on social media for posting a photo of him firing a rifle with its scope mounted backward. Commander Cameron Yaste, Y-A-S-T-E, was recently let go from his position, quote, due to a loss of confidence in his ability to command the guided missile destroyer, the Navy announced in a statement without elaborating. In April, the Navy posted an image of Yaste aiming the rifle with a backward scope on its Instagram account with the caption, "From engaging in practice gunshots, conducting maintenance, testing fuel purity, and participating in sea and anchor details, the U.S. Navy is always ready to serve and protect." This guy is the captain of the ship, and he's firing an M16, and not only is the scope backwards, but it has a forward grip, and the forward grip, instead of being way down the barrel on what they call the Picatinny rail, that shows what I know about guns, the forward grip is way back, almost against the receiver of the rifle, which is improperly, put on there. So what's interesting was, and here's the picture. I'll send you this article, and it shows him firing the gun, and he's got his hat on the whole bit, and you actually see the shell casings. This is like a stop action, so he's firing at full auto, and the shell casings are actually in the air and you see the scope backwards and the grip in the wrong position, and finally they had so many people. The Navy wrote in their social media account, according to Associated Press, "Thank you for pointing out our rifle scope error in the previous post. Picture has been removed until EMI." Now, you know what EMI is?
No,
it says picture has been removed until EMI is completed. EMI is extra military instruction. So essentially,
wow! So he's got to go to training. They got to send him to the brig, and he's got to do some training.
Now, what's interesting is the Marines on their Twitter account, their X account, put up a post titled "Clear Sight Picture," and it says, "Marines assigned to the 15th MEU official conduct a live-fire deck shooting aboard the USS Navy amphibious assault ship USS Boxer, April 16th." And it shows the exact same rifle, the exact same scope, with the exact same forward grip, but the rifle scope is in the proper position, and the forward grip is in the proper position, and they're sort of like, it's sort of like...
That seems pretty petty, Brad. I mean, the good thing is it looks like... I brought the picture up, so I see exactly what you're talking about here. So, yeah, you don't have to send it to me because I see a bunch of these stories. And it looks like Commander Cameron Yaste was hired by the Secret Service to serve on Donald Trump's detail, it says. So that's a happy ending. He's going to teach chicks how to holster their piece, Brad.
Yeah, I guess.
As long as they look like Melissa McCarthy, he can work with them.
John, just zinging them left and right. Okay, we have to take a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T. John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?